Hey everyone, how's it going? My name's Cloud, and welcome to my Locals Retro for week 1 of the OP10 Meta. I only go to Locals about once a week, and normally I would like to spend the weekend before Locals deck building and having some practice sessions to tune the deck, but unfortunately I cannot do that this time around. So, I went into Locals blind. I just picked out a leader I know I wanted to play, put together a last minute deck list literally a couple hours before the event started, and just ran it. But before I go any further into how that went, I just wanted to provide some context, especially for the newer players, on what my Locals is like. The local game store I go to holds OPCG store tournament events, or as everyone just calls Locals, every Wednesday. Entry is $5, and every player who plays receives the current participation pack. My LGS has a 32 player limit, and they always cap it at 4 rounds, which is perfect for me because it starts at 6 p.m. and usually ends by 8:30 p.m. What that means though is that we usually end up having 1 to 2 undefeated players, and those players receive the current winner pack. And that's pretty much it. Quick shout out to my LGS, you guys are great. Okay, let's move on to the overview for the deck I played. For week 1, I went with my favorite leader, Green Yellow Yamato. Green Yellow Yamato was my main deck during the OP06, OP08, and OP 8.5 metas, but I took a break afterwards to try out some other leaders. However, with some of the new cards from OP10, and even more so because of the new Green Yellow Yamato starter deck that's coming out soon, I'm honestly super hyped to just play Yamato again. Let's take a look at the deck list. I don't want to go too in depth for a full deck list breakdown, as this was just a last minute blind run, but I'll at least talk about some of the choices I made when throwing this deck list together. There were 3 main things that I considered. First, I thought I was going to run into a lot of aggro decks, specifically Blue Doflamingo, Red Zoro, and Red Yellow Bello Betty. For Blue Doflamingo, this was before the April 1st ban, so I figured I'd still see some players wanting to play it one last time at full power. For Red Zoro, I just saw from the recent meta reports on the rank sim that Zoro was seeing an increase in popularity and just had a high win rate. For Red Yellow Bello Betty, my Locals in particular has some Bello Betty mains, and that this leader in general was just also seeing a rise in popularity in the meta. So to deal with that, I put in 5 cards. The first 2 are Kozuki Hiyori and Blaze Slice. Both of these cards allow my leader to gain plus 1000 power for the turn, and so this is really good for me because it lets me get out of some of the small 5k swings, but also makes it easier for me to counter out of 6k and maybe 7k swings later. The next 2 are Carrot and Electrical Luna. Both of these cards allow me to freeze my opponent's characters, which is really good when against an aggro deck they swing their board at me. I'll be able to respond with Carrot potentially to freeze a 7 cost or less, or just maybe Electric Luna and freeze their entire board if they swung a lot. And finally, I put in Kozuki Momonosuke. This card is really good, especially when I have a lot of Land of Wano cards. I can establish a blocker and then put one of my Land of Wano cards back into life, allowing me to heal 1. The next point is that I wanted to try out some OP10 cards. In particular, I put in 4 new ones: X-Drake, Basil Hawkins, Eustace Captain Kidd, and Damned Punk. For X-Drake, I thought this card was amazing. It's first an activate main ability, which means I can get around Blackbeard, but also because I'm already a 4 life leader, going into a lot of 5 life leaders, and the fact that I just take hits naturally, is that I'll always be kind of less life than my opponent, which means that I'll always be able to rest up to one of my opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. The next 2 cards, Basil Hawkins and Eustace Captain Kidd, both of these allow me to just trash my opponent's life outright. So this is really good in tandem with Yamato's double attack, which means that I can just get through my opponent's life very quickly. Finally, I put in Damned Punk just because I thought this card was really good into some of the 5 cost bodies that I'm seeing around in a lot of decks, and it also just lets me check their top life just in case the double attack might be lethal to me. The last point is that I went for a Trigger Swarm game plan for the core of the deck. So you can see that I have Nekomamushi, which has a trigger that says if your opponent has 3 life or less, play this card. Same thing with Kikunojo. And I also have Charlotte Cracker, which similar trigger ability, discard 1 card from my hand, play this card. Not only that, I have Dracula Mihawk, which lets me play out a 4 cost or less slash character. And so you can see that my 4 cost cards, Nekomamushi, Basil Hawkins, Charlotte Cracker, Kikunojo, even X-Drake are all slash characters, which means that early on in the game, if I don't have any characters on board, I have to have at least 2 or less characters, I can put down Mihawk and then establish a attacking body. That's a slash character. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I know the entire deck list doesn't fit on screen, so let me throw up the full deck list for you, and you can also find this deck list in the description below. Also, shout out to Eggman. This is his deck builder, and you can find it on his website at Eggman Events. So, how did we do with this deck list for week 1 of the OP10 meta? Well, we had 24 players this week, and I went 2-2. Not bad. Here are my matchups. Round 1 was against Red Shanks. Round 2 was against Yellow Katakuri. Round 3 was against Green Yellow Law. And Round 4 was against Red Green Smoker. Against Shanks, I unfortunately took the loss. For Katakuri, I took the win. For Green Yellow Law, I also took the win. And for Red Green Smoker, I took the loss. In order to keep this video on the shorter side, I'm not going to review each match right now, but I'll be posting all the matchups, that's right, win or loss, with a VOD style review following this, so be sure to check it out. Moving on, let's talk about what went well, what didn't go well, and what's next for me. What went well? Well, I was able to get at least 2 wins. We take those since I came in blind and had no practice. Green Yellow Yamato's double attack is still super insane and gets me a lot of value. Tonoyasu is a monster if I can open up with it in the early game. And finally, 8 cost Kid actually felt pretty good to play. It was a good alternative late game body for when I didn't want to drop a Hody Jones. What didn't go well? I was definitely feeling nervous for this locals. Of course, as I've been mentioning, I just didn't have enough time to prepare, and so I had to throw something together last minute and just had to go in blind. But the other reason is that this is actually my first time ever recording my locals matches, and so I was definitely a bit distracted, trying to get the camera angles right and still be respectful of the players around me. Both of these things just meant that I made a lot of misplays and I could definitely feel it, and I'm sure you'll be able to see it in the VOD reviews later. Speaking about my deck though, I only opened up 1 OP10 box, and it turns out I only had 1 Basil Hawkins that I could put in my deck when I probably wanted 2, maybe 4, and so my deck list just didn't feel like where I wanted it to be. Speaking of that, as you saw, I built my deck to be somewhat anti-aggro, but instead I just ran into a lot of mid-range / late game decks at my locals, and so my entire anti-aggro tech just didn't see any value. Finally, what's next for me? I'm going to be reviewing this week's matches and trying to get those out to you as soon as possible, but also I plan on playing Yamato again next week, so I'll definitely try to get some more practice games in and be a bit better prepared with a more thought out deck list. That's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, remember, keep your minds fresh and your spirits free. See ya!